Listen, I've been stationed on 14 different vessels across 9 sectors, and I thought I had seen everything the galaxy could throw at a security officer. Pirates? Handled them. Smugglers? Caught dozens. Drunk Quelaxians? Starting bar fights. Please, that is basically my weekend routine. But nothing, and I mean absolutely nothing, prepared me for the day Captain Vrel decided to hire a human. The moment she walked onto our ship, I knew we were in trouble. Not the kind of trouble you can shoot your way out of, mind you. No, this was the special kind of trouble that starts with someone smiling too wide and ends with you questioning every life choice that led you to this exact moment. Her name was Kira Holt. 5'0" of compact muscle, dark hair pulled back in what humans call a ponytail, and eyes that sparkled with the kind of mischief that made my secondary heart skip a beat. She wore a leather jacket that had seen better decades, combat boots that could probably be classified as weapons, and carried a duffel bag that clanked ominously when she dropped it on the cargo bay floor. "Reporting for duty," she announced, giving a mock salute that would have gotten her thrown in the brig on any proper military vessel. "I hear you folks need someone who can handle themselves in a tight spot." Captain Vrel, bless his oblivious soul, actually looked pleased. "Ah yes, Miss Holt. Your reputation precedes you. We have been having some difficulties with raiders in the outer tangent sectors. Your expertise will be most welcome." I stepped forward, all 4 of my arms crossed in what I hoped was an intimidating display. My species, the Kathrani, pride ourselves on our physical prowess. I stood nearly 7 feet tall, with chitinous plating that could deflect most small arms fire. "With respect, Captain, perhaps we should test the newcomer's abilities before we trust her with ship security." Kira turned those unsettling eyes on me, and her smile grew even wider. "Oh, you want to test me? That is adorable. What did you have in mind, big guy?" "Drax," I said, tapping my chest plate with one claw, "head of security, and I was thinking a simple sparring match. Standard protocol for all new recruits." "Standard protocol," she repeated, nodding slowly. Sure. Just one tiny question though. When I inevitably win, do I get your job, or do we just agree that I am terrifyingly competent and move on with our lives?" Several of the crew members who had gathered to watch the new arrival laughed nervously. I did not laugh. I had survived 3 separate boarding actions and personally subdued a rogue combat mech on Station Praxis. This tiny human was not going to make a fool of me in front of my crew. "The training deck." 10 minutes, I said coldly. "Make it 5, she shot back. "I want to unpack before dinner, and I heard the cook here makes a killer whatever it is you people eat." The training deck was exactly where overconfident newcomers learned humility. I had the environmental controls set to standard gravity, atmospheric composition optimized for mixed species, and the sparring ring activated with full safety protocols. I was not a monster. After all, I just needed to teach this human the proper respect for the chain of command. Kira showed up exactly 5 minutes later, having changed into form-fitting workout gear that looked entirely inadequate for combat training. She had also acquired an audience. Apparently word had spread, and half the crew had found reasons to be near the observation windows. "So," she said, stretching her arms in a way that made several joints pop audibly, "are there rules to this little dance, or are we going full contact?" "Standard sparring rules," I explained, perhaps more patiently than she deserved. "No lethal force, no permanent injury. First to achieve 3 successful pins or force a submission wins. Got it? Try not to break the giant bugman. I can work with that." "I am not an insect," I said through gritted mandibles. "Kathrani arachnoid in classification, not." She moved. 1 second she was standing casually at her end of the ring, and the next she was inside my guard, driving her elbow into the gap between my chest plates with surgical precision. The impact sent me staggering backward, more from surprise than actual damage. "Point 1, she chirped, dancing back to her starting position. "You know, for a security chief, you sure do leave a lot of openings. That is like defensive posture 101. Did you skip that class?" I charged. It was undignified, unprofessional, and exactly what she wanted me to do. I realized this approximately halfway through my lunge, right about the time she sidestepped, grabbed one of my arms, and used my own momentum to send me crashing into the mat. Point 2, she announced to the suddenly very quiet observation deck. Anyone want to take bets on point 3? I am thinking something flashy. Maybe a leg sweep? No, wait. I will go with a classic. She snapped her fingers. Rear chokehold. Definitely going for the rear chokehold. I pushed myself up, my pride more damaged than my carapace. You are fast, but speed alone will not. Save it for the after-action report, Drax. She beckoned with both hands. Come on, third time is the charm. Maybe this time you will actually land a hit. This time, I was careful. I advanced slowly, keeping my center of gravity low, all 4 arms positioned to defend and counter. I had trained for years in Kathrani combat arts. I had fought species with advantages in strength, reach and armor. I knew exactly how to handle a smaller, faster opponent. Or so I thought. Kira feinted left. I committed to block, and she was somehow already spinning to my right. Her leg hooked behind mine, her hands found purchase points on my carapace I did not even know existed, and the world inverted. I hit the mat hard, and before I could recover, she had me locked in a hold that I quite literally could not break without risking injury to both of us. Point 3, she whispered in my audio receptor, and for the record, I was not actually going for the rear chokehold. Always keep them guessing, right? She released me and stood, offering a hand to help me up. I stared at it for a long moment before accepting. The crew watching through the observation windows were completely silent. So, Kira said brightly, now that we have established that I am not completely useless, how about someone shows me to my quarters? I really do want to catch dinner. Captain Vrel's voice crackled over the intercom. Most impressive, Miss Holt. Drax, please escort our new crew member to Deck 3, Section 7, and perhaps you two should discuss security protocols over that meal. I walked her to her quarters in silence, acutely aware of the way other crew members suddenly found reasons to be elsewhere. As we passed, word had spread fast. The human had humiliated the security chief in under 2 minutes of actual combat. You are angry, she observed, as we waited for the lift. I can tell by the way your mandibles are doing that clicky thing. I am not angry, I lied. I am concerned. Your combat style is reckless, undisciplined. Effective, she suggested. Dangerous, I finished. What happens when you face an opponent who does not play by civilized rules? What happens when someone actually tries to kill you? The lift doors opened, and we stepped inside. Kira leaned against the wall, that infuriating smile finally fading into something more serious. Drax, can I level with you? She asked quietly. Human to, arachnoid alien person. I suppose. Where I come from, everyone is trying to kill everyone, all the time. Earth is not some peaceful garden world where the worst thing you have to worry about is whether your neighbor plays their music too loud. She paused, and something dark flickered across her expression. I grew up in the reclamation zones. Do you know what those are? I did not. They are the parts of Earth where civilization collapsed about 80 years ago, where the environmental disasters hit hardest, where the governments gave up, where people had to figure out how to survive on their own. She counted on her fingers. Toxic air half the year, contaminated water, predatory megafauna created by runaway genetic experiments, roving gangs of scavengers, and my personal favorite, automated defense systems from the old world that still think humans are the enemy. The lift reached her deck, but neither of us moved. I learned to fight before I learned to read, Kira continued. I made my first kill when I was 12 years old. Not because I wanted to, but because it was him or me, and I chose me. So yeah, my style is dangerous, but it kept me alive long enough to get off that hellhole of a planet and see the rest of the galaxy. She finally looked at me directly, and now I am here, on your ship, and I promise you I am very, very good at my job. The doors started to close, and I stopped them with one arm. Why tell me this? Because you need to understand something, Drax. I did not come here to make friends or play nice with the established hierarchy. I came here because Captain Vrelo offered me a chance to do something that actually matters. He said this crew protects trade routes that keep colonies supplied. He said you go places the big corporations and governments ignore. He said you actually help people. She stepped out into the corridor, then turned back. So here is the deal. You can keep resenting me for embarrassing you in front of the crew, or you can accept that maybe, just maybe, having someone from a death world on your security team is not the worst idea. Your choice. The lift doors closed before I could respond. I stood there, for a long moment, processing everything she had said. A death world. That was what she called Earth. I had heard the term before, of course. Every spacer knew the stories about human homeworlds, about planets so hostile that the natives evolved combat reflexes that bordered on precognition, pain tolerances that seemed impossible, and survival instincts that made them terrifyingly effective in crisis situations. I had always assumed the stories were exaggerated. Looking at the empty corridor where Kira had been standing, I was no longer certain. 2 days later, everything went sideways. We were 3 jumps into the outer tangent sectors, running a cargo of medical supplies to the mining colonies on Hesperus 4. Standard route, standard cargo, standard protocols. Nothing that should have attracted attention from raiders. Except apparently, someone had sold our flight plan to the Veccan marauders. They hit us mid-jump, which should have been impossible. The technology required to interdict a vessel in hyperspace was expensive, illegal, and not something that random pirates should have possessed. But there they were, 3 attack frigates pulling us out of transit and demanding immediate surrender. Captain Vrel, to his credit, did not panic. Battle stations. All hands to combat positions. Drax, how long until our shields are at full strength? I checked my console, already knowing the answer was not good. 90 seconds, Captain. Our generators were not expecting combat this close to a jump. Then we have 90 seconds to convince them we are not worth the trouble. Vel opened a channel. This is Captain Vel of the independent freighter Nomadic Spirit. We are carrying medical supplies for the Hesperus colonies. We have no weapons, minimal defensive capabilities, and absolutely nothing worth your time. The response came in the form of a missile lock alarm. I think they disagree, Captain. Our pilot, Jexa, announced unnecessarily. This was bad. This was very, very bad. Our shields would not stop a sustained barrage. Our weapon systems were designed for deterrence at best, and we were outnumbered 3 to 1. Standard protocol in this situation was surrender. Hope they just took the cargo, and file a complaint with the local authorities afterward. Then Kira's voice came over the internal comms, and she did not sound even slightly concerned. Hey Drax, remember that conversation we had about Death World reflexes? You are about to get a demonstration. Also, I need you to do something for me. This is not the time for. Open Hangar Bay 3 and vent the atmosphere. Trust me. I looked at Captain Vrel, who looked at me, and we both had the same thought. This human had lost her mind. Miss Holt, the captain said carefully, perhaps you should report to the bridge so we can... No time, Captain. They are about to fire on us. Your shields are down, and I am your only chance of surviving the next 5 minutes. Drax, vent the hangar. Now. Something in her voice made me do it. Later I would wonder about that. Later I would question my judgment, my professionalism, my sanity. But in that moment, I simply activated the emergency vent protocol for Hangar Bay 3. Through the external cameras, I watched our hangar doors open to the void. I watched atmosphere explosively decompress into space, carrying with it anything not bolted down, including Kira Holt, wearing a thruster pack and carrying what looked like a massively modified mining laser. Did she just? Jexa began. Yes, I confirmed, without a proper vac suit. It appears so. Humans are insane. It appears so. We watched in stunned silence as Kira fired her thrusters, angling herself toward the nearest Veccan frigate. She was moving fast, too fast for someone with zero formal EVA training. The raiders must have been as confused as we were, because they did not even fire on her at first. That was their mistake. Kira closed to within 50 meters of the frigate's hull, then activated her mining laser, except it had been very clearly modified to output about 10 times its standard power level. The beam cut through their shield emitters like they were decorative tissue paper. She just neutralized their forward shields, Jexa reported, sounding awed. With a mining laser. I can see that, I muttered. The raiders finally realized what was happening and tried to target her, but Kira was already moving again, spiraling around their ship with inhuman agility. Every few seconds, she would pause just long enough to carve through another critical system, shield generator, weapon mount, thruster assembly. And then, because apparently she had not made her point clearly enough, she landed on their hull, attached some kind of magnetic clamp and burned a hole straight through into their ship. Did she just breach their hull? Captain Vrel asked. She just breached their hull, I confirmed. Without an actual weapon? Without an actual weapon. The other two frigates finally started moving to assist their companion, but by then it was too late. Through our long-range sensors, we watched internal explosions start to ripple through the first ship. Life pods began ejecting. Kira's voice crackled over the comms, slightly breathless but still irritatingly cheerful. Attention remaining hostile vessels. Your friend just found out what happens when you let an angry human with power tools onto your ship. I strongly suggest you reconsider your current career choices and find literally anywhere else to be. There was a long pause. Then, without another word, the remaining two frigates engaged their drives and disappeared into the black. 10 minutes later, Kira walked back onto the bridge, still wearing her makeshift vac suit and carrying her modified mining laser. She had frost in her hair. Her exposed skin was covered in minor burns from radiation exposure, and she was grinning like someone who had just won the lottery. So, she said, dropping into a chair with absolutely zero regard for protocol. Anyone else hungry? I am starving. Nearly dying always makes me hungry. Captain Vrel opened his mouth, closed it, then opened it again. Miss Holt, what you just did was reckless, dangerous, probably violated about 17 different safety regulations, definitely voided the warranty on that mining laser, and absolutely saved all our lives. She shrugged. Yeah, I get that a lot. I found my voice, though it came out more as a croak. You went into hard vacuum with minimal protection, attacked a military-grade vessel with improvised equipment, and boarded a hostile ship alone. That is not security work. That is suicide with extra steps. Ah, but here is the thing, Drax. She stood and walked over to where I was still frozen at my station. It is only suicide if you die, and I am still here. The raiders are not, and that medical cargo is going to save lives on Hesperus 4, so I call that a win. She patted one of my arms companionably, then headed for the door. I am going to go say what the medical bay has for radiation treatment. Someone should probably check on that mining laser too. I think I might have accidentally melted something important inside it. After she left, the bridge remained silent for almost a full minute. Finally, Jexa said, what we were all thinking. Captain, I know I said humans were insane, but I would like to formally revise that statement. Humans are not insane. They are something much, much worse. They are competent at being insane. Captain Vrel nodded slowly. Noted. And from now on, when Miss Holt makes a suggestion during combat situations, I believe we should seriously consider following it. Agreed, I heard myself say. Because the truth was, I had warned her not to fight. I had questioned her methods, her style, her entire approach to security work, and in response she had casually dismantled 3 hostile vessels while breathing vacuum and carrying power tools. Earth was a death world. That much was now abundantly clear. And we had just hired one of its most dangerous products as our head of security. I had a feeling things were about to get very, very interesting. 3 weeks after the Veccan incident, I was still finding reasons to avoid sparring practice with Kira. This was completely professional, mind you. I simply had important security duties that required my attention, like reorganizing the weapons locker, again, for the 5th time. Because proper inventory management is crucial to ship operations. You know she is going to figure out you are dodging her eventually, Jexa said, leaning against the doorframe with her arms crossed. Our pilot had developed an annoying habit of appearing whenever I was doing something particularly cowardly. I am not dodging anyone, I insisted, carefully counting the plasma charges we definitely did not need to count. I am performing essential maintenance. Right, essential maintenance. That is why you have been reorganizing the same locker for 3 hours. She clicked her mandibles in amusement. My species really needed to work on making that sound less obvious. Face it, Drax. You are terrified of the tiny human. I am not terrified. I am cautious. There is a difference. Sure there is. Jexa pushed off the doorframe. Well, when you finish being cautious, Captain Vrel wants everyone in the briefing room. Apparently we have a new job, and he specifically requested that our resident Death Welder attend. Great. Just fantastic. Exactly what I needed today. The briefing room was packed when I arrived. Not just the usual department heads, but nearly 20 crew members squeezed into a space designed for 12. Kira had somehow claimed the best seat, feet propped up on the table, looking entirely too relaxed for someone about to hear about our next potentially lethal assignment. Drax. Excellent. Captain Vrel activated the holo display, showing a star system I did not recognize. Now that we are all here, let me explain our situation. 3 days ago, I received a distress call from the research station on Kellyan 5. They are experiencing what they describe as a critical security situation and need immediate assistance. What kind of security situation? I asked, already not liking where this was going. That is the concerning part. They would not provide details over standard channels, too worried about interception, apparently. All they would say is that they need help from someone with, and I quote, experience handling unpredictable hostile entities. Kira sat up slightly. Unpredictable hostile entities. That could mean anything from rogue AI, to escaped bioweapons, to really aggressive space squirrels. Space squirrels are not real, Jexa muttered. You say that now, but wait until you meet one. Little jerk stole my lunch once. Focus, please, Captain Vrel interrupted. The research station has offered a substantial payment for our assistance. However, given the vague nature of their emergency, I wanted to get everyone's input before accepting. How substantial are we talking? Asked Ren, our engineer. The Krillvaxi were practical like that. Their species measured everything in credits and energy efficiency, substantial enough to cover our operational costs for 3 months, with enough left over for ship upgrades and crew bonuses. That got everyone's attention. 3 months of operating costs was not something we could just ignore, especially with the way fuel prices had been climbing lately. There is always a catch, I said carefully. What is the catch? Captain Vrel hesitated. Kellyan 5 is in the contested rim, technically neutral space, but multiple factions claim jurisdiction. If something goes wrong, we cannot count on any official backup or rescue. So we go in alone, handle some mysterious threat we know nothing about, in territory where nobody will help us if things get messy. I looked around the room. Does anyone else think this sounds like a terrible idea? About half the crew nodded. The other half looked at the projected payment amount with visible longing. Kira raised her hand like a student in class. Question. How many people are stationed on Kellyan 5? According to the registry, 47 researchers and support staff, Rel answered. And how long since they sent the distress call? 3 days, as I mentioned. 3 days. Kira swung her feet off the table and stood. Captain, I do not know what is happening on that station, but if they have been dealing with a critical security situation for 3 days, they are probably running out of time. Whatever this unpredictable hostile entity is, it has already had 72 hours to become a much bigger problem. Which is exactly why we should not get involved, I argued. We are a freight crew, not a military unit. We have one actual security specialist, I nodded at Kira, and the rest of us are just adequately trained in self-defense. Whatever is on that station clearly requires professional help. Professional help is not coming, Kira said flatly. Look at the location. Contested rim means every military force in 3 sectors will spend weeks arguing about jurisdiction before anyone actually moves. Those researchers do not have weeks. They probably do not have days. That is not our problem. 47 people, Drax. 47 individuals who went to some isolated rock in the middle of nowhere because they wanted to advance science or discover something new or just make enough money to feed their families. And now something is trying to kill them, and we are their only option. She turned to Captain Vrel. I say we take the job, but I need complete operational authority once we arrive. No committee decisions, no debates. If I say we evacuate, we evacuate. If I say we fight, we fight. Agree? The captain looked at me. I looked at the ceiling, wondering what I had done in a past life to deserve this. You are seriously considering giving a human complete operational authority in a crisis situation? I am considering trusting the person who single-handedly disabled 3 hostile vessels while breathing vacuum, Vel said mildly. Unless you have a better suggestion. I did not. That was the most frustrating part. Fine, but I am going on record stating this is a terrible idea. The vote was not even close. Apparently most of the crew had decided that money and helping people outweighed my concerns about survival. Democracy in action, everyone. Kira grinned. Great, so who wants to hear my list of things that could go horrifically wrong on an isolated research station? I really do not, I muttered. She ignored me. Rogue AI, escaped bioweapons, interdimensional rifts, parasitic organisms, nanite swarms, spatial anomalies causing temporal loops, awakened ancient evil, corporate sabotage gone wrong, prototype weapons testing gone wrong, really aggressive space squirrels. Space squirrels are still not real, Jexa insisted. Psychic contamination, dark matter exposure, artificial gravity collapse creating physics nightmares, telepathic fungi, crystallized time paradoxes. You said not to use that word, I interrupted. What word? The one about crystal things. You said it was overused. Oh. Right, okay, so not crystallized time paradoxes. How about congealed temporal anomalies? That is worse. Fine, regular time paradoxes then. Are we happy now? Captain Vrel cleared his throat. Perhaps we should focus on preparing for the mission rather than cataloguing every possible disaster scenario. Spoil sport, Kira said, but she was smiling. Okay, here is what I need. Drax, inventory every weapon we have, lethal and non-lethal. Ren, I want our sensors calibrated to detect anything weird. And I mean anything. Energy spikes, biological anomalies, temporal distortions, emotional instability, whatever. Jexa, plot the fastest possible route to Kellyan 5. Captain, I need to know everything about that station, layout, security systems, research projects, personnel files, anything they have on record. She paused. Oh, and somebody find me another mining laser. I kind of really enjoyed having one last time. The trip to Kellyan 5 took 6 days. 6 days of Kira turning our cargo freighter into something resembling a military vessel. She ran combat drills, evacuation procedures, emergency protocols, and something she called worst-case scenario planning that mostly involved asking what we would do if various crew members got possessed, infected, or temporarily displaced. By day 3, everyone was exhausted. By day 5 we were ready to face pretty much anything short of a full-scale invasion. And by day 6 I had to admit that maybe giving the Death World human operational authority had not been a complete disaster. We dropped out of hyperspace on the edge of the Kellyan system and immediately our sensors started screaming warnings. Talk to me, Ren, Kira said calmly, standing behind the engineering station. Multiple energy signatures. Most of them are normal station operations, but there are 3 distinct anomalies clustered near the central research hub. Ren adjusted the sensors, her scaled hands moving quickly across the controls. Wait, make that 4 anomalies. And they are moving. Moving how? Fast. Very fast. And they are not following normal physical laws. One of them just passed through a bulkhead. I felt my mandibles click nervously. Things should not pass through bulkheads. Agreed, Kira said. Jexa, keep us at a safe distance. Captain, hail the station. Let them know help has arrived. Vrel opened a channel. Kellyan 5 Research Station. This is Captain Vrel of the Nomadic Spirit. We are responding to your distress call. Please respond. Silence. Long, uncomfortable silence. Then a voice. Male, human, and barely holding together. Nomadic Spirit, thank the void you are here. I am Dr. Marcus Webb, Station Director. We have a critical situation and need immediate evacuation. What is the nature of your emergency, Doctor? We static interrupted him. They are more static. Started as an experiment. We were studying. The signal cut out completely. Kira swore. Jexa, how fast can you get us to docking range? 12 minutes at standard approach speed. Make it 6. Drax, suit up and grab whoever you trust in a fight. We are going in. I wanted to argue. I wanted to point out that rushing into an unknown situation with mobile anomalies that ignored physics was textbook stupidity. But something about the fear in Dr. Webb's voice made me move instead. 6 minutes later, we were suited up and heading toward the station's main airlock. Our team consisted of me, Kira, Jexa, who had insisted on coming despite being a pilot, and Ren, who had the best technical knowledge if we ran into malfunctioning equipment. The airlock cycled without incident, which somehow made me more nervous. Automatic systems should not work perfectly on stations with critical emergencies. Atmosphere is breathable, Ren reported, checking her scanner. Temperature nominal, no obvious biological or chemical hazards. Which means whatever is happening here is not environmental, Kira said. She had her modified mining laser in one hand and a plasma cutter in the other. Both were powered up and ready. Stay close, watch your corners, and if you see anything that should not exist, do not try to understand it, just shoot it and ask questions later. That seems unscientific, Jexa pointed out. I am not a scientist. I am someone who keeps scientists alive long enough to do science. Totally different job. We moved deeper into the station, following the main corridor toward the central hub. Emergency lighting cast everything in a red glow that made shadows seem deeper than they should be. Our footsteps echoed wrong, like the station was bigger on the inside than the outside. I do not like this, I muttered. Nobody likes this, Kira agreed. That is how you know it is serious. We passed through 3 sections without seeing anyone. No researchers, no bodies, no signs of struggle. Just empty corridors and that eerie red lighting. Then we heard the screaming. It came from everywhere and nowhere, a sound that made my audio receptors hurt. Not words exactly, but something that bypassed language and went straight to the primal fear center of the brain. I had heard a lot of scary sounds in my career, but this was something else entirely. That was a human scream, Kira said quietly. Multiple humans. They are terrified. How can you tell? Ren asked. Because I have made that exact sound. We should move faster. We picked up the pace, following the screaming to a sealed blast door. The control panel next to it was flickering with corrupt data, showing symbols that my translator could not pass. Ren, can you open it? Kira asked. Maybe. Give me a minute. Our engineer pulled out her tools and started working on the panel. Whatever locked this door did not use standard protocols. It is like someone rewrote the security code in a language that should not work with our mathematics. That is impossible, I said. And yet, the screaming stopped suddenly, leaving a silence that was somehow worse. Kira pressed her helmet against the blast door, listening. I hear movement, lots of it. Something big pacing back and forth, and something else making clicking sounds. What kind of clicking sounds? The kind that predators make when they are deciding which prey to eat first. She backed away from the door. Ren, how much longer? Almost got it. Just need to there. The blast door slid open with a pneumatic hiss, revealing the central research hub, and standing in the middle of it, surrounded by terrified scientists huddled against the walls, were 3 entities that made absolutely no sense. They were roughly humanoid in shape, but wrong in ways that hurt to look at. Their bodies seemed to shift between solid and transparent, their limbs bent at angles that violated geometry, and their faces, if you could call them faces, appeared to show multiple expressions simultaneously: happy, angry, terrified, curious, all at once. Phase wraiths, Ren breathed. Oh void, they actually exist. Phase what now? I asked. Theoretical entities that exist partially in normal space and partially in dimensional substrates. They were hypothesized centuries ago but never proven, because the energy requirements to summon one would require, Ren, focus. How do we kill them? You do not. They are partially intangible. Conventional weapons pass right through them. One of the entities noticed us. All of its attention, from all of its simultaneous emotional states, locked onto our group. Then it moved. I have seen fast things. I have seen dangerous things. This was something else. The entity crossed 30 meters in what might have been a step or might have been a teleport. It raised an arm that might have been solid or might have been just a suggestion of an arm, and swung at Jexa. She tried to dodge, but you cannot dodge something that is in multiple places at once. The hit connected, and Jexa went flying backward, hitting the wall hard enough to crack her helmet. New plan, Kira said. Ren, get those scientists out of here. Drax, you are with me. Jexa, fall back to the ship. I am fine, Jexa groaned, clearly not fine. You are concussed and your helmet is broken. Go. Now. The entity turned its attention to Kira, and something like a smile crossed its multiple faces. It moved again, faster this time, going straight for her. Kira did not dodge. She did not even flinch. She just stood there, both weapons raised, and waited until the entity was right on top of her. Then she fired. The mining laser and plasma cutter activated simultaneously, their beams crossing at exactly the point where the entity existed most solidly. There was a sound like reality breaking, a flash of light that made my polarized visor go dark, and suddenly the entity was screaming. Not the ambient screaming from before. This was different. This was pain. The entity fell back, its form flickering more rapidly, like a hologram losing power. The other two entities stopped their pacing and turned toward us, their attention unified for the first time. Oh good, Kira said brightly. I have their attention. Drax, remember when I said humans are good at being competent while insane? Yes. I might have undersold it a bit. When I say run, you run. Do not look back. Do not try to help. Just get those scientists to safety. Understood. Kira, what are you? Run. Now. I ran. Behind me, I heard the sound of weapons fire, inhumans screaming, and Kira laughing like someone who had finally found a problem worthy of her particular skill set. I grabbed Ren and two of the scientists and pulled them toward the exit, trusting that the other researchers would follow. We made it to the corridor before the entire station shook. Emergency alarms started blaring, announcing structural integrity failures in multiple sections. The lighting went from red to complete darkness, and somewhere behind us I heard an explosion that could only be Kira's modified mining laser finally giving up. Keep moving, I shouted. We stumbled through the dark station using emergency floor lighting to navigate. More explosions echoed from behind us. The station shook harder. Something in the walls started groaning, metal stressed beyond its design limits. We reached the airlock just as Dr. Webb and the remaining scientists caught up. I did a quick count. 44 people. 3 missing. Where is Kira? Webb asked. She stayed behind, I said, already moving back toward the blast door. You cannot go back there. Ren grabbed my arm. The station is coming apart. Then she needs help. What she needs is for us to not waste her sacrifice by getting killed ourselves. I hated it, but she was right. We cycled through the airlock and onto our ship. Jexa, despite her concussion, had managed to get to the bridge and was keeping the nomadic spirit in position. Everyone aboard? Captain Vrel called over comms. Not everyone, I said quietly. There was a pause. Where is Miss Holt? Still on the station, buying us time to evacuate. Another pause, longer this time. Jexa, maintain position. If there is any chance. The research station exploded. Not a dramatic fireball like you see in entertainment vids. This was a rapid decompression event followed by secondary explosions as power cores overloaded and fuel reserves ignited. In less than 15 seconds, Kelly and 5 went from a functional research facility to an expanding cloud of debris. The bridge was silent. Even the rescued scientists, crowded into the observation deck, said nothing. We just watched the debris field spread, knowing that somewhere in that cloud of metal and fire, Kira Holt had made her last stand against entities that should not exist. "Scan for life signs," I heard myself say. "Please." Ren worked her console, but I already knew what she would find. Nobody could survive that kind of destruction, not even a human from a death world. "I am sorry, Drax," she said finally. I nodded, not trusting my voice to work properly. This was what I had been afraid of from the beginning. Kira's recklessness, her refusal to accept reasonable limitations, her absolute certainty that she could handle anything the galaxy threw at her. It had finally caught up to her. "Captain, I am detecting a signal," Jex said suddenly. "It is faint, but it is definitely artificial. Location, 0.7 million kilometers, and drifting. It is moving away from the debris field at high speed. An escape pod? Negative. The signature is wrong. It is more like..." She adjusted her sensors. "Captain, I think it is a thruster pack. A very badly damaged thruster pack that is barely functioning. And what would be using a thruster pack in the middle of a debris field?" Pharrell asked, though his tone said he already knew. Only one person on that station was crazy enough to use a thruster pack for emergency evacuations, I said, already heading for the airlock. "Jexa, plot an intercept course. Ren, prep the medical bay. Captain, I need permission to attempt a recovery." "Granted. Be careful, Drax." "Careful is not going to cut it. I need to be fast." I suited up in record time and launched myself into space using our cargo tug's maneuvering system. The debris field was a navigation nightmare, but I ignored safe practices and pushed straight through, dodging chunks of station and hoping nothing important got hit. The thruster pack signal grew stronger. I spotted it finally, a tiny speck against the black, tumbling slowly as its fuel reserves ran out. And attached to it, barely conscious and definitely not wearing a proper vac suit, was Kira Holt. I grabbed her and activated my return thrust before I even checked if she was breathing. The tug's automated systems handled the flight path while I focused on keeping Kira stable. Her suit, which was really just reinforced fabric with a portable air supply, had multiple tiers. Her exposed skin showed signs of vacuum exposure and thermal burns. She should not have been alive, but her pulse was strong, and when I checked her vitals, everything was reading in acceptable ranges, painful ranges that would have killed most species, but acceptable for someone from Earth. We made it back to the ship in under 3 minutes. The medical bay was ready, and our doctor, a Quillvaxi named Sess, who normally handled minor injuries and space sickness, took one look at Kira and started swearing in 3 languages. "She was exposed to hard vacuum for at least 2 minutes, Sess said, scanning her. "She has radiation burns, thermal shock and signs of explosive decompression. By all rights she should be dead or permanently brain damaged. But she is not," I said. "No. Somehow, she is not." Sess started treatment, muttering about death world physiology and impossible survival rates. "She will need several days of recovery, but barring any complications, she should make a full recovery. Humans are absolutely ridiculous." I sagged against the wall, relief flooding through me. She really is. 2 days later, Kira woke up. I was sitting next to her bed, having basically moved into the medical bay despite Sess's complaints. "Hey," she said, her voice rough. "Did we get everyone out?" 44 scientists rescued. 0 casualties on our crew. The station is gone, but the entities went with it. I paused. "You almost died." "Yeah, but I did not. That is what counts. You evacuated yourself using a thruster pack and an improvised air supply while a research station exploded behind you. I considered walking, but the whole explosive decompression thing made that impractical." She tried to sit up, winced, and settled for propping herself on one elbow. "Did I miss anything interesting?" "Captain Vrel has been fielding calls from 3 different news organizations who want to interview the crew that saved Kelly and 5. The contested rim territories have suspended their jurisdiction arguments long enough to offer us a commendation, and Dr. Webb wants to name his next research paper after you. Hard pass on the interviews. The commendation sounds nice, and tell Dr. Webb he can name a space fungus after me if he finds one that is particularly annoying. That seems fitting. I clicked my mandibles in what might have been a laugh. You are impossible. I am effective. There is a difference. She met my eyes. I told you back on day one, Drax. I am very, very good at my job. I believe you now. Only took you several near-death experiences and a station-destroying finale. I will consider that progress. She was impossible. She was reckless. She was everything I had been trained to avoid in security personnel. She was also the reason 44 people were alive. Thank you, I said quietly, for staying behind, for giving us time to evacuate, for surviving when you should not have. You are welcome. And hey, now you have a great story for the next time someone questions your hiring decisions. Nothing says competence like a human who can fist-fight phase entities and win. You did not fist-fight them, you used weapons. Fine, weapons fight. That is still impressive. I shook my head, but could not suppress the satisfied click of my mandibles. Rest. Doctor's orders. We have 3 more days of flight before we reach a proper station, and you are not leaving medical bay until then. 3 days? I will go crazy with boredom. You survived vacuum exposure and explosive decompression. You can survive boredom. She laughed, then winced. Okay, note to self. Do not laugh while recovering from near death. Got it. I left her to rest and headed back to my security station, already planning the after-action report. How exactly did you write up human fights impossible entities, using improvised weapons and manages to destroy entire research station while evacuating all personnel? And more importantly, what was I going to do the next time Kira Holt decided that the sensible approach to a problem involved vacuum exposure and explosives? I had a feeling I was going to find out sooner rather than later. Because one thing was clear, humans from Death Worlds did not do anything halfway. They warned you not to underestimate them, and then they proved exactly why that warning was necessary. I had warned her not to fight those phase entities. She had warned me not to regret it. As usual, the human had been right.